On the corner of Maple Street in a small Canadian town, there stood a modest white house with green shutters. The kind of house that seemed frozen in time, gardens that had once been lively with flowers, now scattered with weeds, and a front porch where rocking chairs sat waiting for conversations that rarely happened anymore. Inside lived Margaret Thompson, an 82-year-old widow. To the town, she was simply Grandma Maggie. She had lived in that house for nearly 50 years, raising her children there, sharing countless dinners with neighbors, and watching generations grow up around her. But age had not been kind to Margaret's body. Arthritis gnawed at her joints, slowing her steps, and a recent fall had left her reliant on a wheelchair. What once had been an easy trip down the porch stairs to her mailbox now felt like an impossible challenge. Her home, her safe haven for decades, had suddenly become her prison. Without a wheelchair ramp, she couldn't leave the house on her own. Friends and neighbors offered to bring groceries, but Maggie longed for something more simple: the ability to roll outside, feel the sun on her face, and exchange greetings with the people she had once seen daily. "I feel like I've disappeared from the world," she whispered one afternoon, staring out the window as children cycled past. One neighbor in particular noticed Maggie's struggle. Daniel Reed, a 35-year-old carpenter who lived across the street, had grown up waving to her every morning on his way to school. She had given him cookies on Halloween, cheered for him during his baseball games, and even helped tutor him in reading when he was a boy. Now, as an adult, he couldn't ignore the sight of her sitting by the window day after day, her wheelchair still, her smile faint. One rainy morning, as he rushed to his truck for work, he caught her gaze through the curtain. She quickly looked away, embarrassed at being seen. That moment hit him. Something has to change. Daniel spoke to his wife that evening. "She needs a ramp. It's not right that she can't even step outside." "I could build one, but maybe we should get the whole neighborhood involved." His wife smiled. "You know how this town is. People just need a reason to come together." The next day, Daniel began making quiet phone calls and knocking on doors. He spoke to Mr. and Mrs. Alvarez, the retired couple down the block. He reached out to Sarah, a single mom whose son often mowed Maggie's lawn in the summer. He even contacted Paul, the owner of the local hardware store. The response was overwhelming. Everyone remembered how Maggie had once been the heart of the neighborhood, offering rides, sharing baked goods, listening with patience when someone needed advice. Now they saw their chance to return that kindness. By the end of the week, more than a dozen neighbors had agreed to help. Some offered labor, some promised materials, others said they'd bring food and coffee for the workers. The neighbors decided to keep it a surprise. If Maggie knew, she might protest out of modesty or guilt. So the plan was simple: gather on a Saturday morning while she was still asleep and build the ramp in one day. Daniel drew up a simple design: sturdy, safe, wide enough for a wheelchair, and built with treated lumber to last for years. Paul from the hardware store donated half the wood. Another neighbor loaned tools. The children made handmade signs that read, "We love you, Grandma Maggie," to hang once the ramp was finished. It wasn't just about the wood and nails. It was about unity, about proving that in a world often filled with division, a small town could still act like one big family. That Saturday dawned bright and clear. By 7 a.m., the street was alive with energy. Trucks pulled up with supplies, neighbors carried toolboxes, and the sound of hammers soon echoed through the morning air. One neighbor started cutting wood. Another measured and leveled. Someone else mixed concrete for the base. Even children pitched in, handing screws and holding boards steady. Sarah's son, only 12, worked with surprising focus. "I want Grandma Maggie to be able to see me play basketball again," he said with determination. There were laughs, coffee breaks, and moments of teamwork that felt almost magical. People who rarely spoke beyond polite greetings found themselves laughing together, sweating side by side, building not just a ramp, but a stronger sense of community. By late afternoon, the structure stood complete. A beautiful wooden ramp extending from the porch to the driveway, strong and safe, with railings on each side. At the bottom, the children had placed potted flowers and a big handmade sign, "Welcome back, Maggie." Now came the moment they had been waiting for. Daniel knocked gently on Maggie's door. "Who's there?" her voice called, tired but curious. "It's Daniel, ma'am. Could you come to the front porch?" With some effort, she wheeled herself to the door and opened it. Her eyes widened. For a moment, she was speechless. The ramp stretched before her like a bridge to freedom. Dozens of her neighbors stood around, smiling, clapping softly, some holding balloons. Tears welled in her eyes. You did this?" "For me," Daniel knelt beside her. "We just wanted you to be able to come outside again, to be with us. You've given so much to this neighborhood." It was our turn. She pressed her hand to her mouth, overcome with emotion. Slowly, with trembling hands, she pushed her wheelchair forward. The ramp held firm. She rolled down smoothly, and when she reached the bottom, the neighbors erupted in cheers. At that moment, Maggie didn't just regain mobility, she regained her place in the world. The story of the ramp spread quickly through the town. Local newspapers covered it, calling it the Ramp of Kindness. Social media posts traveled far, inspiring strangers in other places to ask, "What can we do for the elderly and vulnerable in our communities?" But for Maggie, the gift was much simpler. She could now sit outside in the sunshine, watch the children play, greet the mailman, and once again feel like part of daily life. "People think I'm lucky," she told a reporter later, "but the truth is, this town is lucky. We have each other." What made this story so powerful wasn't the ramp itself. It wasn't the wood, the nails, or even the design. It was the spirit behind it. It showed that kindness is contagious. One man's decision to act spread into a wave of generosity. It reminded us that community is built on small actions, checking on a neighbor, offering time, lending tools. All of these became pieces of a larger picture. It proved that love doesn't always need grand gestures. A ramp may seem simple, but to Maggie, it represented freedom, dignity, and belonging. In a world often overwhelmed with headlines of conflict and division, stories like this remind us of what is possible when people choose compassion. Months after the ramp was built, it became a symbol for the neighborhood. Children decorated it during holidays with lights and garlands. Teenagers shoveled snow off it in the winter without being asked. Visitors who passed by often stopped to admire it, knowing the story. And Maggie, she spent countless afternoons on that ramp, waving to neighbors, giving candy to children, and once again, becoming the warm, welcoming figure she had always been. "Every time I roll down this ramp," she said with a smile, "I feel like I'm rolling into love." The tale of a small Canadian town building a ramp for an elderly neighbor is more than just a sweet story. It is a reminder that kindness builds bridges, sometimes literally. It teaches us that even in our busy lives, we can pause and notice who needs help. We can gather together, share what we have, and make someone's world brighter. Because when a neighborhood comes together, they don't just build ramps. They build hope. They build dignity. They build family. And in doing so, they remind us all of one timeless truth. The strongest structures are built, not with wood and nails, but with kindness.